Hello and welcome. I'm Suzy and you're listening to F Word, the agency experience. Thanks for tuning in to Fresh's very own podcast, where we'll be taking an insider's view on agency life in our incredible industry. We'll be sharing insights, innovations, and knowledge on all areas of the agency experience. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Stay tuned as we delve into what it takes to stay ahead of the game in 2025 and beyond. Today we're going to set the tone for our first season, and we're talking about 20 years of Fresh. So what? We're going to really get under the hood of what the current business landscape is like, and we're going to talk about the pressures and the challenges that our clients are under. So, who better to join me for this than our very own head honcho, Lee Harris, and one of my fellow group account directors, Rach Sugden. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Suzy.
How are we?
Good, thank you very much.
Good. So, before we look into the future, which we'll be doing a lot of during this episode, we obviously need to look back. We need to reflect on where we're up to and what's happened in the last 20 years. So, how does it honestly feel having hit this 20-year milestone? I think probably that's most appropriate for you to answer first.
One looks back with a huge sense of pride on what we've managed to achieve, but at the same time, it doesn't feel any different to any other year going forward. But what we have got is a huge bank of evidence as to everything. We are as good as we say we are. So I've got a lot of client testimonials, a lot of experience, made a lot of mistakes over those 20 years, learned from them, and that's everything we can take forward into the next 20 years. So it's exciting, but it has been exhausting as well.
Yeah, and I guess things have changed a lot in the last 20 years, certainly with the type of agency that we are.
I mean, the whole industry is different, right, than how it was 20 years ago. It's evolved so much. So like the agency landscape's evolved, the client expectations, even what the public expect is significantly different to where we were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And what's been your own personal highlight, Rach, over the last 20 years?
So moving to the city, I think, is a really big one for me. We moved in June 24, and I think it just really, it's more than a physical move. It's like it's kind of what it represents. And it felt like a real step change in terms of who we were and our brand and our vision and what we were offering the clients. And particularly, you know, our home is Manchester. Obviously, we have other homes as well, but our root is Manchester. And I think to be in the hustle and bustle of the city and everything it brings has been a real defining moment.
It's really odd, isn't it? Because before we did it felt like such a big change, and it felt like I don't think everybody was that warm to it, the idea at first, because it was such a difference and travel and things like that. But now it feels like we are totally, that we've always been here.
There's definitely a different energy about the agency now we're here, and I think it's been a really, really good move.
And a bravery too, right? Because you said you can't please everyone, but there was a decision to go anyway.
Yeah.
And actually that decision has really kind of come full circle. And I think that individually and clients and just as a creative unit, I think it has really benefited us. So sometimes it's about just taking a bold step, right?
And it's those connections as well, like with Manchester Central just on the
absolutely,
doorstep,
Martin Manchester,
yeah. And different options for lunch is nice.
Too many.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
So what about challenging moments? What would you say those have been over the last 20 years?
I mean, there's obviously the obvious one is the pandemic is a fairly significant one over the last 20 years, but there was a massive financial crash in 2008, which was massively challenging for business and changed the way businesses work. And of course, post that, you know, between 2008 2013, you got the onset of like big tech. So big tech companies are coming forward, Facebook. So that's fundamentally changed our industry as well in terms of the way it operates. But yeah, clearly the pandemic for an events agency was a big one.
Yeah, it was quite a shift in how we work things. And I think we were quite fortunate in that our clients, some of them still needed to activate. They just had to activate in different ways. So it was quite actually, some of it was quite nice because we were learning new skills and we were kind of just learning how to pivot.
Absolutely.
Straight
you went to the P word.
Yeah.
I think as well, it's like learning how to pivot is the word again. But what was really nice was it was alongside the client. So everyone was learning at the same time.
Yeah.
That's the beauty, isn't it? When it's not like we want to get here and everyone else needs to come along on the ride. It's like we all know where we want to go.
Yeah.
And then you try and collectively move. It just makes for a nice way of working, I think.
I agree, but I'm going to phrase it slightly differently. And this may need some editing, but we were all equally in the shit. Clients and their events agencies.
Yeah.
So, that it was just testament to the partnership that we were able to say, right, okay, this is something we have to navigate. We have to navigate it together. We have to think differently. And we were able to do so. And that was really, really testament to, obviously, the skills within the business. I am going to say that, but the closeness of the partnerships where companies trusted us. Because again, yes, we did evolve into different ways of working, but it was still fundamentally using a creative solution to tell a story.
Rach, any other challenging moments?
So I can't really define one as like a moment, but something that you said just made me think that I think basically change, right? Change management, and be that change in accounts or change in clients, change in suppliers, change in people. The nature of agency is that we are very flexible and we are agile and we constantly move to change. And with that, it can be really challenging. And you always get through it and you always look back and go, bloody hell, we're in such a better position from where we were, all these learnings, et cetera. But yeah, I'd say that, in 20 years, we've probably all lost all sorts, or things have changed along the way. Hair. Segue. So I'd say navigating that. And I think making an agency a happy place to navigate that as well, I think is important, because there is uncertainty that comes with change.
So we might be 20 years old, but we're obviously keen not to be dwelling too much on the past. So what's next for Fresh?
We've recently refreshed our brand. We've renewed our vision, mission and values to make them more current for the next 20 years. We've launched our new Edinburgh office, which is focused on integrated marketing, which is amazing. We've invested heavily into our content and comms offering, film and social, as well as the overall experiential landscape being enhanced by those various offerings. So we're investing in the areas where we see more demand coming through.
I think something coming through more and more is around sustainable offerings, and how that is delivered, how it's approached, how it's measured. The output is becoming very specific now. So I think that is definitely something from a client's perspective they expect and want to be guided through. And I think, it's a tricky subject when you are delivering a live project. There is a navigation to that. But I think gone are the days that it's a box ticking exercise. I think what clients are asking for is far more robust than that now. And we're seeing it a lot with existing clients, with new clients. They're really drilling into our metrics, our personal goals, how we intend to benchmark that.
But that's the nature of working in partnership with clients, isn't it? Because yes, we deliver globally, but we use the boots on the ground in the local economy. That's the difference. But because of the partnership with clients, we understand what they're looking for so very deeply. For example, the event we're delivering in Hong Kong fairly soon, that's all going to be delivered locally, but using the talent and the knowledge held within this Manchester office because of the relationship we have with the client.
Yeah.
Trace software by Isla. As soon as you put in travel, it completely, the results
Excuse
go.
the numbers.
So that's just something we have to, think about when we're doing global events, international events. That's where it becomes really difficult.
But this is the challenge of the industry, right? Because we, to your point before, we all went through the pandemic. We know what it's like to not be face-to-face. And the course correction is to be face-to-face. And there's such a huge impact. We know what the ROI is. Like, we understand what that means for businesses. We feel it ourselves, right? Yes. When we're face-to-face. So it's the balance, isn't it? In terms of, okay, you've got to fly people somewhere, but then how do we as an industry respond to that? How do we counter that in our creativity, in our delivery, in our production, in our, what are our non-negotiables? And that's not just us, that's, all agencies, it's all venues, it's everybody. And I think there is a real shift at the moment in terms of, baseline acceptance. And I think that will just increase in the future as well.
And as you say, that's across every business sector.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We're not going to be able to eliminate carbon footprint for our industry, but we can all do what we can to minimise it. And every agency is working towards that, I believe. You've got things like B Corp registration, like you said, you've mentioned Isla, you've mentioned Trace. If we can hold ourselves to a higher standard, I think then, we can move the industry along with us.
Yeah, so for me, the future, the what's next for Fresh, I think talent is a big one. We've moved to the city centre location so that we are more attractive to keep attracting fantastic talent.
I think it kind of links through to opportunity, right? So opportunity on the grand scale, but also for the team as it stands, because we've kind of got history of moving people around the agency. So, if they kind of go, oh, actually, I've got a real interest in this. Yeah. And then we're lucky enough to be able to move people and say, well, let's investigate what that might be for you. And really like diversify where their path is going to be. Yeah. And I think the more that we grow, the more that we kind of have diverse delivery, if you think across all of our different divisions and everything that we deliver as a project. I think it's really nice from an existing talent perspective as well, because the opportunities are so great. So it's like you could kind of go in that direction, or you could maybe go in that direction. And
we were talking today about a specific member of the team who started off in our very traditional experiential team and loved that, and then went on to production teams and doing weird and wonderful things there, and then on to our more traditional events. And just got other people who moved from account team into comms or
So I'm just thinking great trajectory as well. We've had that conversation around, perceptively in a business of our size, sometimes there's that glass ceiling. But of course, as the growth has happened, and we can all see where that's coming from, roles will expand.
Yeah.
So that growth is outwards.
Exactly.
Well, of course, this industry is so exciting. It keeps us on our toes, that's for sure. How do we help our clients navigate the next 20 years?
Similar to how we've helped them navigate the last 20 years, but we're in the communications industry as a wider bracket. So communicating with us. The more we understand the nuances, the challenges that business is facing and what they're trying to achieve, the better solution we can provide.
Yeah, and that's why those clients that we have that partnership approach with, that we're able to get really under the skin and work with them day in, day out.
And that's why we've opened up the divisions. And again, the investment we're making is to answer those challenges. But I just think that's the critical thing. Treat us like a direct extension of their team.
Which I think we definitely see more where where our responses to clients, to partners is not, there's the response. We're seeing a lot more of that. Well, shall we sit around a table and workshop this? Yeah. And actually what we get out of that is from all sides, a much closer version of the truth, I think. For me, coming from client services, right, a lot of it is to do with really deeply understanding their challenges. So that could be on a daily basis, what is going on in their job that has an impact on us. Yeah. And it could be in their role, it could be within their organization. And I think the more that we really sympathetically understand that and put ourselves in their shoes in what their day-to-day is, helps us be more empathetic, I think, but in turn really helps us listen to what the ask is and therefore mould the response.
Yeah, and just thinking about the question in a slightly different way, can we help the industry help itself and help clients help them by, and again, this is going to be possibly controversial, but not making us pitch. Just bringing us in as soon as there's an issue.
There's a huge movement around this, actually.
When was the last time we actually delivered what we pitched? The pitch is just like the beauty parade, and then it's okay, well actually now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's get around the table just as you've suggested. Well, why go through that arbitrary first stage?
So in my other world of marketing, which I've definitely had a little dalliance in at one point, there are agencies who will not pitch. And it's really interesting. They'll sit a C-suite and they'll say, but what is it that you're actually trying to achieve here? you know, and then it comes back to that workshop piece. Well, let's shape the response, because you either, you know, it's funny. I mean, this is really opening a door, right? But to be invited to pitch means that you have effectively passed certain markers anyway. Financial checks, you know, delivery checks. You know, they've bought
Fantastic.
into.
You wouldn't be able to pitch without those credentials.
Exactly. With the kind of clients and partners that we work with, given the procurement process that they have, you can't get through the door. So if you're through the door, what is the pitch?
And don't do it in separate stages.
Yeah.
Bring procurement in from day one to say, right, okay, these are the financial markers we need you to hit. These are the business problems we need you to solve. Yeah. These are the challenges we've got as a business.
I don't know if clients know the investment that we put into a pitch from a time perspective. That could be internal time, that could be freelance time. It's significant. Yes. And, you know, there's definitely times where, as you say, you win the pitch, you never deliver that anyway. Or you don't win the pitch and you don't really get any feedback about that either. You know, so what is that exercise? And
how could that time be better spent? So sorry, but if I don't say this, but it's just like, okay, come and spend 5 meetings with us.
Right.
5 days with us, 5 weeks, whatever it has to be, rather than going through the pitch process. No, you're on board. We know you're the people we want to work with, but just do that bit for free.
Exactly.
Really get to know us.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Would that not be a better investment?
Delve into strategy and planning and insights and all that kind of stuff and do it live.
Yes.
Because otherwise you get into a place where we are second guessing things. You know, sometimes we'll pitch and we'll say, we've done this in isolation. Yeah. You know, and I think it's a really interesting topic, and I think it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I mean, we do have some accounts and some partners that we don't pitch. You know, there's retainers in place. But
it's been a pitch for a certain number of years. Yeah. So that's quite nice.
Some of our best work comes out of those long-term relationships.
Absolutely, because we've got that freedom and that trust.
And I wonder if the industry knows that this is the way agencies are talking. I mean, how many agency events have you been to? I know I've been to probably 15 in the past year, where the number one subject is to pitch or not to pitch.
Yeah, cost of pitch.
Or whether we just all say as an industry, right, we're not doing this anymore. Yeah. I wonder whether our clients are even thinking, you know what, this is a waste of time. We have to bring all these people in, then it goes to procurement, then it goes back up to the board and back down again. Are we all talking about the same thing, maybe? Yeah. We just all need to get together.
I think what we have seen recently, and it's probably to do with clients respecting their own time, right? We have an internal initiative around time, and, you know, making sure that we value it, making sure that we're respectful of our business needs as well as our clients' business needs. And I think gone are the days where you see 100 slides in a pitch deck, you know, so now it's all around really concise messaging, making sure that you're hitting the points as quickly as possible, which is, you know, if we were to advise our clients on comms, right, that tends to be what we would say. Exactly. So sometimes in a pitch, it seems slightly contra to the purpose, if that makes sense. So I think even if it's a case of condensing down what the ask is or condensing the expectation, I think would be great, because clients, I've spoken to clients where they've lost days on a pitch, and I think, going back to what I was saying before about empathy, we have to understand that quite often our clients don't do what we do for a job. They have a different job. And then they have to do something that's in our world in order to fulfill their day job, if that makes sense. So if you're going to lose 3 days of your time by sitting and listening to 6 agencies pitch you creative and strategy, you know, you're like, oh, bloody hell, I just want to get on with my actual job.
So what type of culture do we think is required to navigate the future landscape? Like, what culture do we need to be encouraging, nurturing within our agency?
You mentioned earlier that the ways of working will never be the same again post-pandemic. And I think that is a really important place to start, because when I started in industry, you know, you went somewhere, you worked all day, probably worked all night, you know, but we didn't have the same tech, right? So we couldn't be contacted in the same way. So when you were physically somewhere, you were working, you know, and then there was the space to be away from that work. I think what we have now and this is a global challenge, is there is a real blending of like work and life.
Quite a hot topic at the moment, of course, is return to the office and office working. We kind of have seen the benefit of more face-to-face time, and I think everybody does appreciate it to an extent, but I think that kind of that hybrid is where we will kind of continuing to attract the right talent.
I think there is definitely expectations that individuals have around what their job should be for them, as well as what they should be for their job. And I think you could argue it's potentially a healthier balance than it has been, but I think it's definitely a balance. So, you read a lot in there's some big agencies, right, who've gone like 4 or 5 days a week, absolutely mandatory. And the kickback from that is there has been huge kickback. So some people, brilliant, this works really well for me. I want to be in this environment. Other people are working parents, they're carers, there's neurodiversity, there's things that they don't want to bring to the workplace that they don't even want to tell people about, but the world has evolved to allow them to be who they are. And then to mandate that 4 or 5 days a week can be exclusive as opposed to inclusive. Yeah. So I do think it's a really interesting one on how you curate culture that allows for both, allows for what the agency, the business needs. I don't think that as a creative service industry, I don't think we've quite got it yet in terms of what the balance is.
The key word there is balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you've got to be flexible.
But it can be different for different people, right?
We've knowingly recruited people that we know can't make it to the office 5 days a week.
Yes.
There's an expectation of a certain amount of time. But I go back to what I said before around, I think career development, you have to spend time with your peers, with your colleagues. You talked about the movement around from different functions, from comms to production to content, whatever it happens to be. That movement happens when you're in the office and you kind of understand more about what that person's doing, what the role entails, et cetera, et cetera. So I just think that it's always going to have to be a balance. Personally, I think it needs to be more towards 3 days a week rather than 2 days a week, which is sometimes where we are. Obviously, we're talking generically here, but from a fresh point of view, that's where we are. Because I see the benefits and I recognise more on that. But of course, there's cons on both sides. So it's just always going to be a balance.
We talk a lot as GADs around kind of new talent and making sure that we are putting our new and emerging talent in an environment that they can learn. And I don't mean training, I mean like sitting and listening, because you learn you pick up so much. Absolutely. And I think it comes back to that thing of balance. It's hard, right? It's difficult if, people feel obliged to be in the office. So there's like, they don't want to be in the office. Versus the fact that actually we know it's really, really good for their career development. And I personally, I'm not speaking about Fresh here. I'm talking about much broader than that. I've got friends who work out of this industry, where it's the same challenge. It is the same challenge, and the expectations are very, very different, because I think we didn't have options. And now as soon as you get options, it just throws everything into the mix, right? And then it comes down to the individual organisation or the client to shape that.
I admire the boundaries that people are putting in place.
We didn't have any boundaries, and to our own detriment, to be fair.
Totally.
I mean, you learn a lot, but I don't know if it was necessarily the best, the best way of being brought into an industry.
A healthy balance.
A healthy balance, because, if you look now around, if we're talking about like the future of the industry, there's a whole thing about longevity, right? How do you encourage more women, of a certain age and beyond to retain senior positions, right? There's so many conversations around this, and I think balance is so key to it.
I remember the days of pitching and everybody being in the office till like 1 a.m.
Absolutely.
There was something sounds quite nice about it. Someone would always go and get a nice takeaway, and we would all be in it together.
A closeness and a camaraderie comes from those sort of things far more than you'd ever get on a Teams call.
That's what I was going to say in terms of the office stuff. It's the social and the mental health benefits I think that brings. And perhaps it was, we all felt it in the pandemic when we weren't seeing colleagues, but there's probably subtle ways that improves your mental health without you kind
definitely.
of really knowing that.
Yeah.
And also, it's kind of social skills. It's like you're keeping them kind of lubricated to be, the awkward conversations in the kitchen and things.
Yeah.
It's just all part of like the working life. And if you've not experienced that, particularly if it's, you're new to the industry, like it's to me, it's not a full experience.
But at the same time, I feel quite passionately about the fact that we wouldn't have some of the talent we have if we were mandated 5 days a week.
If we fully,
And going back to those big agencies
And that's
you talked
like,
about,
yeah.
they're now saying, right, okay, you've got to be back in the office. They're excluding talent.
They are.
They
are.
And that
Or
isn't
it's
something.
No.
I know you don't. That's not your desire
Absolutely
to
not.
kind of gradually kind of
Not
get
at
to
all.
5.
Not at
That's
all.
not the.
No, I just don't believe it'll ever go to anything other than hybrid.
Yeah.
And I think your point around excluding talent is quite interesting because some of those agencies, who will not be named, they've got fantastic talent.
Yes.
The work that comes out of there is award-winning, top-tier work. That talent is different to culture, right? So, and I think that's where you get length of service. Like Suzy's been here for an eternity, But I think that
You came back.
I came back. This is my second round. Would I have come back as a working parent 5 days a week? Probably not.
No way.
And I think about that quite a lot. And I'm very grateful for the flexibility that I personally have in my job because I couldn't have done it otherwise. So I think, it's just, I think balance is the word, right? And I think what's really nice about Fresh is the way that it's a very personable agency, right? So we can work with different challenges that people may have out of these 4 walls to accommodate that whilst maintaining the integrity for the client, which ultimately is hugely important. But I don't think this topic will go away across the industry. I think it's going to become more and more and more. You get into remote working with people in different countries. Like it's just huge now. But I think for me, it boils down to culture. An agency has a reputation for being cutthroat, right? Some agencies definitely are cutthroat. In our sector, maybe. In other sectors, absolutely. I mean, brutally so. And I think what's really interesting is seeing people who've experienced that and being the polar opposite. 'Cause they're like, not on my watch.
Yes.
Absolutely not. And when you get enough of those people in a space, it's golden.
Yes.
It's to be acclaimed, really.
I think that's why there's so many of us dinosaurs that have been here so long.
All that come back, right?
Or they come back.
Because you go around the block and you're like, all right, yeah.
Or that arrived as
I
dinosaurs.
see you. Just arrived as a dinosaur.
Yeah, exactly. I'm 8 years in, but still a newbie.
Yeah. We have had a lot of returners, which is always a good sign. So what we're going to do now is talk to our younger selves. And I've got some photographs here of our 20-year-old selves, and I want you to tell me what advice you'd give. So we're going to start with Lee. So we've got this here, which is a beautiful photo, as you can.
It's gorgeous.
Rachel's
It's a gorgeous
laughing a
photo.
lot.
I've just got a lot of questions.
So, was this a fashion accessory, the phone, or?
No, it was this fresh-faced young man just got his first proper job off the farm.
What was the job?
It was selling advertising.
Absolutely.
Telesales.
Yes, it was.
It was telesales, yeah.
Oh my God, as in newspaper advertising.
As in newspaper
Yes.
advertising, the Norwich Advertiser.
Oh my God, that's outstanding.
And is this a signature?
Yes, that is a signature. No, there were no fans. It was for my mum. I know, honestly, yeah.
Oh my God,
That's excellent. So, what would you tell your
What would I tell
your
that young
young
man?
self holding his phone?
I would say slow down, because I was very ambitious and pursuing all sorts of things at the time. I would say enjoy the journey. Probably a similar point. What I feel was important then definitely will pale into every kind of insignificance once you're a father to 5 wonderful little human beings as I am now. And enjoy the hair, because you've probably got about another 10 years. That's it.
Cling on for dear life.
Exactly. No. As soon as it was past the point of no return, shave it off.
Fabulous. And Rach,
Can't wait.
let's have a look. Here she is.
Clearly, that's a night out. The fact that Lee's is a professional shot.
Exactly.
Mine's a night out.
It's in Norfolk.
So, what are you going to say to her? What does she need to know?
She needs to know to be super present in the moment. So it's probably not too dissimilar from your words of wisdom, I think. I think when you're kind of starting out, you've got no concept of what's going to come. So you almost chasing constantly chasing, and maybe not understanding that even though that experience might not be exactly what you want it to be, it will give you the foundation for something much greater. You know, to use your words, like the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? The job could go good, it could go bad, but ultimately 20 years later, you can draw upon all of that experience. So yeah, just be a little bit more present, I think, a little bit more mindful. What else you've got over there? Have you...
Okay, well, to make it fair, to make it fair, of course, has the house blonde, fringed indie, naughty Suze.
Like a full leather
Not naughty
jacket.
Suze, naughty Suze. So I would, again, very similar, but I would definitely say everything's going to be okay. I think that age, the direction wasn't there like it is for like a lot of people in their early 20s. They're not sure where things are going to go, but I think just to chill out and everything will work out all right. Yeah. So thank you guys, both of you, for joining us for the very first episode of the F Word.
Thank you too. It's been lovely. Thank you.
It's been super exciting. I think we could all say we were a little bit apprehensive, but it's actually been a lovely chat.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. If you've enjoyed our chat today, please subscribe to the podcast and follow us on our social channels. Till next time, bye for now.